Sawadee good morning and welcome to Newsline for Thursday, July 31st, 2014. I'm Surapal Lautaranarit. And you're tuning in to today's segment of Thailand Moves Forward, broadcasting live on NBT and Radio Thailand FM 88. Now let's take a look at today's headlines. The Department of Employment plans to evacuate 1,500 Thai workers from Libya due to the ongoing violence breaking out across the country. Director General of the Department of Employment, Sumet Mahosot, chaired a meeting on the evacuation of Thai workers in Libya after the National Council for Peace and Order expressed concerns over their safety. The first group of the workers to be evacuated includes those in Tripoli and Benghazi. The department asked the workers' employers in Libya to help them receive exit visas urgently and set up teams to facilitate them in case of emergency. The workers who are members of the Fund for Assistance to Workers Abroad will receive compensation of 15,000 baht each if they decide to travel back to Thailand. All workers who have returned from Libya will receive 1,500 baht each to travel back to their hometowns. Employment companies have suggested an evacuation plan to move Thai workers out of Libya by ship and will gain visa exemption for them to facilitate the evacuation. CEO of Silver and Gold Development Placement Company, a job seeker company for workers in Libya, said the evacuations will take two different routes, by land from Libya to Tunisia and by boat from Libya to Greece. These alternatives are considered the best and safest evacuation routes. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has negotiated with the Libyan Foreign Affairs Ministry to exempt visa requirements for evacuation teams due to the red tape normally involved, in order to immediately and rapidly move the workers out of the area. For Thai workers who are under a company contract, the employment company will look for substitute jobs in other countries for them. The Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs has stepped up measures to inspect travelers from Africa to Thailand following the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. Public health organizations in Europe are on high alert after a report that a 40-year-old Liberian-born American who had been infected with the virus died on a flight from Nigeria to the U.S. This case of death led to the fears that the virus could spread by air travel. The Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed that relevant units in Thailand were closely monitoring the Ebola outbreak. It also launched special measures to screen and run a check on those who traveled from West Africa to Thailand before allowing them to enter the kingdom. A tracking system has been set up in a bid to prevent human trafficking activities in Thailand. The Ministry of Social Development and Human Security Permanent Secretary Vishian Chawalit convened a meeting to grant the ministry's policy on a tracking system for prevention and suppression of human trafficking at the provincial level. To update its operation system and protect the well-being of victims, each province was directed to convene a monthly meeting of the Subcommittee for the Provincial Human Trafficking Prevention and Suppression Operations Center. The subcommittee, comprised of the public and private sectors, has been urged to report its performance and progress to the ministry each month. The Permanent Secretary of the Interior Ministry paid a visit to Cha Cheong Sao to inspect a center that was set up to heed complaints from the locals. Permanent Secretary for Interior Wibun Sungwon-pong and his team visited the Cha Cheong Sao Provincial Operations Center, which was established to learn about people's concerns and complaints and to distribute information and advice to the public. His team was welcomed by Cha Cheong Sao Governor Anukool Tangkananukoolchai at the center, which is located on the third floor of the City Hall. The Permanent Secretary for Interior has ordered the establishment of provincial operation centers in every province nationwide, according to the NCPO's order. The centers are operated from city halls or proper venues to serve the people with effective services. Every province is opening its own center, while the main operation center will be opened at the Wang Chaya People Service Center on September 4th. The governor of Mae Hong Son has presided over the opening of Damrong Tham Center in order to receive complaints from and offer advice to the locals in the area. Mae Hong Son Governor Surapon Panat Ampon chaired the opening of Damrong Tham Center at the old Mae Hong Son City Hall. The center serves as a channel for local residents to lodge their complaints on all issues. In accordance with the NCPO's pursuit of national reconciliation, the center's main objectives are to receive complaints from the locals, provide them with useful information, and offer advice to the people in the area, as well as play a crucial role in bringing locals' opinions and suggestions to the authorities' attention. The working team of the Water Management Committee from the Royal Irrigation Department is inspecting the Chao Phraya River Basin to make sure enough water will be available for farmers for their crops this year. Mr. Suthep Noi Pairot, Deputy Director General for Operation and Maintenance of the Royal Irrigation Department, presided at the conference of the Water Management Committee, which is a working team established to ensure that sufficient water will be available for farmers during the upcoming drought period. The Meteorological Department has predicted that there will be less rainfall than usual this year, which may cause problems for agriculturists, especially those in the Chao Phraya River Basin. After the conference, the working committee traveled to the Manorom Water Development and Supply Center, which is to be used for farming in Mueang District and Manorom District of Chainat Province and Sapphaya District of Nakhon Sawan Province. In this area, there are 4,000 households, and it was found that farmers and families are suffering from the lack of water supply for agricultural purposes and consumption. In response, the Royal Irrigation Department has already installed water pumps to feed water to the troubled farmers. The Ministry of Commerce is preparing to distribute rice with the auction method in August this year. It has confirmed the rice has good quality and meets standards. Permanent Secretary for Commerce Chutima Bunyaprapatson said the ministry would continue with its plan to distribute 200 to 500,000 tons of rice in government warehouses from August to September 2014. The rice distribution would be delayed during the period when the produce was abundant in order to prevent effects on rice prices in the market. Ms. Chutima stated further that she expected that the Department of Foreign Trade would be able to arrange an auction for the rice from the beginning of August to September this year. She also confirmed that the rice had passed quality inspection and forecast that Thailand would be able to export 10 million tons of rice this year. The Ministry of Commerce has launched the Community Product Festival 2014 in order to stimulate the economy and expand marketing channels while aiming to generate more than 200 million baht in revenue from the event. The Ministry of Commerce said it had chosen to stage the event following the NCPO's policy to stimulate the economy and will present the marketing fair on 3 occasions from July to October. The first occasion is from July 30th to August 4th, 2014 at Impact Arena Exhibition and Convention Center. At this event, a collection of over 1,000 local products from each region of the country, such as OTOP, organic products, geographical indicative products, halal products, southern border products, franchise products, and community products from ASEAN and elsewhere in Asia will all make up a remarkable display. Moreover, there are opportunities for negotiations among traders, exporters, wholesale and retail traders from the domestic market and abroad in order to expand marketing channels and upgrade products where necessary to appeal to the international market. It is expected that the circulation of money from the staging of the event will be about 200 million baht. The Fiscal Policy Office, or FPO, has decreased the economic growth estimate for 2014 to 2% after witnessing a lower than expected growth figure in the first half of the year. FPO Director Grisada Jina Wicharana stated that the office has adjusted its annual GDP growth projection down to 2% as opposed to 2.6% forecast in March. The growth figure throughout the year is expected to move between 1.5 and 2.5%. Mr. Grisada explained that the reduction was made after the Thai economy put up a lukewarm performance in the first half of this year, causing the GDP growth to miss its previous target. Nonetheless, he expressed confidence in seeing healthier expansion in the remaining portion of the year, owing to both short and long-term stimulus measures adopted by the National Council for Peace and Order. The 2% growth estimate is based on a scenario that the average GDP of trading partners expands by 3.8%. The price of Dubai crude oil stands at $106 per barrel. The Thai baht trades at 32.5 against the greenback, and the policy interest rate stays at 2% per annum. The Office of Industrial Economics, or OIE, has revealed that the Manufacturing Production Index, or MPI, for June 2014 declined by 6.6% compared to the same period last year. OIE Director Somchai Han-Hiran said that the capacity utilization rate stood at 60.61 points, due to an overall decline in the production of automobiles, hard disk drives, garment, jewelry, and air conditioners. Apart from that, the previous administration's first car scheme that took effect in 2013 resulted in a lower output in automobile production for the year 2014. The figures are expected to improve by the end of this year, however, largely due to government spending on mega infrastructure projects. The OIE has forecast that Thailand's GDP would expand by 1 to 2% for this year, which is lower than the 2 to 2.5% forecast earlier. Southeast Asian stock markets were mostly weaker yesterday, with the Philippine benchmark recovering from a fall in the previous session before the central bank's interest rate decision, while the Thai index touched an over 3-week low. Bangkok SET index ended down 0.1% at 1,518.79 points, falling at 1 point to 1,500.05, the lowest since July 7th. The nation's composite index suffered contractions throughout the day, barely keeping the index at the 1,500-point mark. The day's highest trading shares were Chokan Chang and K-Bank, gaining 6% and 1.97% at the end of the day. Meanwhile, the Philippine main index ended up 0.3% after a fall on Monday to its lowest close since July 15th. It was shut on Tuesday for a market holiday. The Philippine Central Bank is likely to continue its gradual policy tightening at a meeting today. And that's the end of today's edition of Thailand Moves Forward. Before we take a quick break, let's take a look at the exchange rates and commodity prices. Welcome back, and you're watching Newsline. Palestine mourned the deaths of 10 Palestinians from one family killed in an Israel airstrike on the Gazan city of Khan Yunis. Ibrahim al-Astal, a relative, said that 10 of his family members were killed and 10 others wounded in the strike on their home. The Palestinian Health Ministry said 1,270 Palestinians, most of them civilians, have been killed since Israel began its offensive on July 8th with the declared aim of halting cross-border rocket fire. In ground operations launched 10 days later, the army has said its main mission is to locate and destroy tunnels that militants have built under the frontier and have used to launch attacks inside Israel. On the Israeli side, 53 soldiers and 3 civilians have been killed. Public support remains strong for continuing the operation in the hope of preventing future flare-ups. Scores of protesters shut down Mexico City's main thoroughfare to protest against escalating violence in Gaza that has killed more than 1,200 people, with the pro-Palestinian supporters calling on the government to cut ties with Israel. The protest comes amidst one of the bloodiest days of the conflict, with officials reporting that 85 people were killed in Gaza on Tuesday from heavy bombardments from air, sea, and land. Chanting murderers through the streets of Mexico City, protesters want the Mexican government to cut ties with Israel in response to the fighting. Both U.S. President Barack Obama and the UN Security Council have called for an immediate ceasefire to allow relief to reach Gaza's 1.8 million Palestinians, followed by negotiations on a more durable end to hostilities. Around 150 people are believed to have been buried in a landslide after heavy rain fell near Pune on Wednesday, with rescuers struggling through mud to try to reach them. The first batch of emergency workers have arrived at the scene 60 kilometers from Pune, but the rain, mud, and poor communications were hampering rescue efforts, officials said, with estimates of the number trapped varying from 150 to 200. Sandeep Rai Rathore, Inspector General of the National Disaster Response Force, said details about the scale of the disaster were still sketchy. 7 teams of 42 rescue workers each were being sent to help, said the Disaster Force's Deputy Inspector General of Operations. Unprecedented rain in June last year wreaked havoc across Uttarakhand, causing rivers and lakes to burst their banks, inundating towns and villages, and killing thousands of people. According to officials, Ivory Coast is worried about a possible Ebola outbreak from cross-border travel, as the highly infectious deadly disease has claimed over 600 lives in West Africa so far. The head of the country's Infectious Disease Surveillance Center said the authorities were making all effort to prevent the infection from reaching the country. It comes just as neighboring Liberia announced drastic measures to deal with the disease. In a televised statement, Liberia's president announced the quarantine of a number of communities and the closure of schools across the country, the toughest measures yet in a bid to halt the worst Ebola outbreak on record. Ivory Coast says it has put everything in place to be able to deal with a potential outbreak, starting with communication and awareness campaigns on the border, as well as information campaigns. A Victorian-era seaside pier at Eastbourne on Britain's south coast was badly damaged when fire broke out in an amusement arcade yesterday. Flames could be seen leaping from the roof of the two-story structure, and East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service said a large plume of smoke was rising above the town. The blaze started around 3 p.m. in the arcade, some 50 meters from the shoreline, it added in a statement. Police and the Coast Guard were at the scene, but there were no early reports of any injuries. Eastbourne's 300-meter-long pier was opened in 1870 and has been hit by fire before in 1970. Dozens of people in Mexico City crafted a 62-meter-long monster sandwich, making it the biggest sandwich ever made in Latin America. The Mega Baguette record attempt took place in Venustiano Carranza district of Mexico City. Local authorities and more than 80 local businesses rolled up their sleeves to prepare the sandwich, known as torta in Mexico. Despite its super size, the sandwich didn't quite make it into the big league of sandwiches. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, the largest sandwich ever made was in 2005 in the United States and weighed 2,467.5 kilograms, while the honor of the longest sandwich goes to a troupe of Lebanese restaurants who constructed a sandwich over 730 meters long in 2011. And that's it for today's edition of Newsline. For any comments or suggestions, please feel free to email us at newsline.nbt@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. Simply type in NNT or check out our website at thainews.prd.go.th/newsing. The Government Public Relations Department, or PRD, is scheduled to hold its 9th weekly Music in the Garden event at its headquarters in Soi Ari this evening, starting from 4 p.m. onwards. The public is welcome to join the event free of charge. And now we're going to say goodbye with a male giant panda cub celebrating his 2-year anniversary at San Diego Zoo. I'm Surapal Lautharanarit. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. สวัสดีครับ